Hello, happy Monday, May 8th. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. It's a pretty special night around the NHL tonight as it's the draft lottery. And yes, the Penguins are going to be part of it. No, they cannot get the number one overall pick, but they can get as high as the number four overall pick. I'm going to tell you all about that coming up right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at International Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. So let's just jump right into it tonight. Draft lottery. It feels weird, right? The Penguins are actually a part of this right now. They are projected to have the number 14 overall pick. Odds say that they are probably going to stay at that spot, though there is a 1.5% chance that they move up to the number 4 or number 5 overall pick. And that means a couple of things. Number one, social media would melt. Oh, all the conspiracy theories would be back. Remember how they were when they won the lottery for Sid, Gino, and all that way back when. And then now, they're favored by the refs in the playoffs and all that garbage. It would come back in a big way for this. Number two, the Penguins would have a chance to get a very, and I mean a very good player if they somehow got the number 4 or number 5 overall pick. That is the only way I definitely do not trade their first round pick in this year's draft. And, during this segment, I am going to touch on a few players that they could potentially take. I have some notes here. I'm going to Google Doc on my computer that I've been compiling about some of these top prospects. I will say right off the bat that these prospects I'm going to talk about are better than anyone that was taken in last year's draft. And I think that's been widely regarded by a lot of, people from Elite Prospects, Bob McKenzie's list, the hockey writers, all that stuff. I think all these guys I'm going to talk about are better than Slavkovsky, Shane Wright, everyone else that was picked in the top 5 last year. And obviously the Penguins, they wouldn't get Shane Wright. I mean, that's not going to happen. They're also not going to get Fantilli. I think he's going to go number 2 or number 3 overall. But they could have a shot at getting, and let me preface this. It's a 1.5% chance that they move up to the number 4 or number 5 overall pick. It's very likely not going to happen. But in the off chance it does, these are the players that I would very much consider drafting if I were the Penguins, and all these players could be really good for them in future years. Number 1, Matvei Michkov. He is being described as the best player to come out of Russia since Alex Ovechkin. I'm not kidding, by the way. Like, he has a ton of talent. Great goal scorer. He's a little bit short. I believe he's only, making sure I have my notes here, 5'10", 148 pounds. So he does have to bulk up a little bit, but he puts up freakish numbers. If you want to go back to 2020 when he played in the Russia U16 league, he scored 70 goals and 109 points in 26 games. 26 games, 109 points. You go to the next season when he played in the MHL for SKA St. Petersburg. 35 goals, 52 points in 50 games. 35 goals in 50 freaking games. You go back to 2021, 2022. Played same thing with the MHL. 22 goals, 38 points in 22 games. 22 goals in 22 games, a goal per game player. Played in the Russia International, had some good production there. This past year, he is in the KHL, played for SKA Petersburg. He's only played 3 games, has no points right now, but he's played in the VHL, 14 points in 12 games, 20 points in 27 games for Sochi. He is ridiculously good. But the thing with him, though, this might scare some teams away, and I think it would maybe scare the Penguins away. He's under contract in the KHL, and he's not eligible to go to the NHL until 2025, 2026. So in this hypothetical, if the Penguins were to take him, he would not be really eligible to play for the team until Evgeny Malkin is 40 years old and Sidney Crosby is 39 years old. You see where I'm getting at? It would be tough for them, I think, to take him because I think they would want someone on an ELC that can contribute either this upcoming season or the next season. It's just, are the Penguins willing to wait for him? That's my biggest question. And it's very hard for some of these Russian prospects to get out of their contracts early. I know the Capitals just got lucky with Miro Shineko. He signed his ELC. He's potentially going to be a player for them next season, but it's pretty rare. He is a dynamic goal scorer. Again, he's a bit small. His defensive ability is not as good right now, but he can also work on that. But at the end of the day, he is a pure, playmaker, a great goal scorer. He would be the best prospect this team has had in quite a long time. There's also Leo Carlsson, who is going to be there, I think, at number 4, number 5 overall. This past season played in the SHL and the Sweden Hockey League, played 44 games, 10 goals, 25 points in those 44 games. Also played in the international for Sweden's under 20 team, 15 games, 10 goals, 17 points in those games. Before that, he's played in the Orbro HK Junior 20 League. That was in 2020, 2021, 2022. Had 10 goals, 27 points in 14 games. He's had pretty solid production. He could potentially make the jump to the league as early as next season. He could use another year, and he is under contract with his current team for one more year. But the thing is, the NHL actually has a transfer agreement, which, with the Swedish leagues, which allows, a team could pay to buy this player out of his league so that he can sign an ELC. Great hands, really high hockey IQ, great skating ability. His defense is a little bit better than Michkov's. He would be a lot of fun to have on the Penguins, and he can play center, left wing, whichever. Honestly, he would be a great fit for this team. And then another one that I have circled, Will Smith, another very, very strong player, all-around offensive threat, plays center for the U.S. national team's development program. Was very, very good this season. Played 60 games, 51 goals, 127 points in 60 games. 127 points. That is just ridiculous numbers. And then played, in the juniors this season, played 20 games, 15 goals, 42 points. Played on the U18 for the World Junior Championships, 7 games, 9 goals, 20 points. Last season, played on the national under 18 team, had 27 points in 28 games. He is the real deal, though. He is already committed to playing at Boston College for next season. So I don't think the Penguins would get him right away. But, I think maybe in another year or two after that, I think they could. Yeah, it would be shorter than someone like Michkov in Russia, who's under contract for a few more years. But very good shot, good hands, great playmaking, really strong skating. His defensive ability is also a bit better. He's also very deceptive when the puck is on his stick. And again, he, like all the other prospects I have just discussed, he would be the Penguins' best prospect in this system by a mile. Probably will have been their best forward prospect since Evgeny Malkin, to be honest, Sid. Because the Penguins really haven't been able to draft a lot of strong forward prospects during the center because they're always trading for them. You look on this team right now, Jake Ensel, sure, he was a mid-round pick, but this wasn't a top 5 pick, and no one was expecting him to be as good as he's been. So, he would instantly become the best prospect in this system. And again, he's already playing for Boston College next season with his teammate Ryan Leonard. He also plays for the U.S. National Development Team, and I'll get to him now as well. This year, 51 goals, 94 points in 57 games, 11 goals, 20 points in 17 games for juniors. Again, he'll be playing Boston College for next season. Also played on the U.S. National Under 17 team and the Under 18 team. Did play in the World Junior Championships, had 5 goals, 6 points in the 6 games. You also know what you're getting with him. Both would be really, really sound picks for the Penguins. So those are the players that I'm really looking at in terms of and who could be available at the number 4, number 5 overall pick. Again, is it likely that the Penguins get this pick? No. But I wanted to go over some players who would be options for them if they do, because they would be set up to get a pure franchise type player toward the end of the contending window of Sidney Crosby, Kenny Malkin, and Chris Sang. And they could also get someone in here who could theoretically play on an ELC so the Penguins can save some salary cap space that way. That's what I really wanted to get into for this segment. So, again, my draft scouting profiles, they're not the best. I'm not Cam Robinson over here. I'm not Bob McKenzie. I'm not some of these guys from the elite prospects and the hockey writers, but, I still like to dabble into it as much as I can and try to give you guys, as good of a scouting report as I can. If you want to read more in depth about these players and get even better scouting reports than me, and trust me, there are plenty more out there. You can go to any of those websites, Elite Prospects. The Dauber Hockey is very good with theirs. Bob McKenzie's list, so much more. So, again, those are the ones that I'm really looking at in terms of the number 4, number 5 overall pick. And again, I would not trade that pick if they got it. I would only trade the pick if they stay at number 14, even number 13. Those middling picks, you just don't know what you're going to get from any of those players. I would very much look to trade that pick, and I wouldn't just dump it for the sake of dumping it. That's just not what I'm a part of here. I would look to, shop it for someone who can make an impact at the NHL level, whether it's a forward to maybe replace Jason Zucker if he walks, whether it's a defenseman to play with Chris Letang or Jeff Petrie, or whether it's to get a goaltender like Jeremy Swayman, Connor Hellebuyck, UC Soros, something like that, someone who can make a true difference for this team. I don't want to do something like Lou Lamoriello did this past offseason where he traded the number 13th overall pick for Alexander Romanov. I mean, no disrespect to Alexander Romanov. I think he's a fine player. Is he worth trading a top 15 pick for? No, because I don't think he's a top pairing guy or even a second pairing guy. That's just my opinion, though. So I just wouldn't do it for something like that. And especially wouldn't do what Jim Rutherford did when he traded that late first round pick for Ryan Reeves. That was just very clueless, in my opinion. So, draft lottery tonight, 8 p.m. Twitter roll out if the Penguins move up 9 or 10 spots. Remember, Penguins can only move up to number 4. A team in their position, you can only move up 10 draft spots. You cannot move up any more than that. So the only team outside the top 10 that has a shot at getting the number 1 overall pick is the team that has the number 11, or that has projected odds to be the number 11 overall pick right now. So that does it for this first segment, getting into the draft lottery. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to continue our season reviews. And yes, we are going to discuss Mikael Granlund because he played on the third line before we get to our fourth liners like Josh Archibald and Ryan Poehling. I'm not going to do some of the other guys like Nick Bonino because he only played one game, or Dmitry Kulikov because he didn't really play much either. But Nylander did play over 20 games, so I think that's worthy of a small season review. So that's coming up after this commercial break. But before we dig into that, we do have to discuss Indeed. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you matched candidates. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. So even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. And it's an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest in 2019. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Remember, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, I'm back on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter, @LORSO Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. So continue our season reviews today. Another one of the third liners, Mikael Granlund, came over during the trade deadline, right before the trade deadline, I should say, for a second round pick. That was Ron Hextall's last of many blunders with the organization. Played 21 games for the Penguins this season in 242 minutes at 5-on-5. When he was on the ice, the Penguins had 51% of the shot attempts. They had 53% of the actual goals for. Expected goal share of 57.5%. Also, 60% of the scoring chances, 57% of the high danger chances, only 37% of the high danger goal score. So, funny enough, his underlyings are pretty good. That's the thing that's saving grace a little bit. But then when you look at his counting stats, 1 goal in those 21 games, a garbage time goal, I may add, it was brutal. He never really fit in here. And again, I'm saying this as someone who loves digging into the numbers. I love going on Natural Stat Trick to see if the numbers back up my claims. And this is honestly a rare situation where the numbers, they go against what I saw a little bit, because I saw someone who was really not engaged, especially on the forecheck. Someone who, he was lauded for his passing ability. I never really saw it that much. His defensive impact is obviously not good. If you go to Jay Fresh's player stat card, he ranks in the 1 or 2 percentile in terms of even strength defense, which is horrendous. His shot was not there. He didn't really do much of anything. He was just kind of there in a way. And, I don't know why Ron Hextall thought it was a good idea to acquire him. We saw Josh Yowie report on Twitter that it was Chris Pryor that actually, told him to go out and get Granlund. The Penguins are going to have no choice, I think, in this matter when it comes to getting his contract off this team. People will say, well, Hunter, you can pay a first-round pick to get out of that contract. Why would you want to pay a first-round pick to get out of that contract when you can trade that pick for someone who can actually help you, whether it's a younger player, forward, defense, or a goaltender? I'm not paying a first-round pick to do that. Buyouts stink. I understand that. But I think the Penguins really have no choice in the matter here when it comes to buying him out, because they will be saving $4 million against the salary cap for this next season. That's very, very good. And I mean very good. And of course, as I'm recording this, 17, 18 minutes in, my dogs decided to go crazy downstairs because I am sure they are seeing someone walk by with a dog. They cannot stand that at all. But again, $4 million salary cap space, that gets you a third-line center maybe, another top 4 defenseman, maybe a new goaltender. That's what you got to be building towards when it comes to the team next season. That money is huge for this team. And he just can't be on this team next season, Granlund, that is. I also don't think he even fits Mike Sullivan's system. And that comes back to another point that I've been thinking about, or something that I've been thinking about. Did Ron Hextall and Chris Pryor even consult Mike Sullivan on that trade? Serious question. Did they even consult him? Because when I look at Sullivan's system, and it really, when it comes down to it, he wants people who forecheck aggressively, who shoot the puck at a decent rate. You work it low to high. I don't think Granlund does any of that. And again, he was lauded as this great passer. I never saw it except maybe in that first game against the Lightning. He just didn't do enough during his tenure here, and didn't even crack 10 points in those 20 games. Wasn't even a half a point per game player. A buyout, again, they stink. You have to pay this player $4 million for the not $4 million, excuse me. You have to pay this player for the next 4 years, not $4 million, God forbid. But I think it's something you have to do. And even after this year, you get $3 million in cap space for the next season. And after that, you get about, I believe it's 1 point something million for cap space. It's a little low. The cap hit this year is low. It's below $1 million. It jumps up to 1.8 for the final 2 years, but it's something that you have to live with. And I think this is an easy slam dunk, in my opinion. Overall tenure, I'll give Granlund. Yeah, I'll probably get. It's hard for me to give him an F because I'm going to have no choice to, because he wasn't good. I'm mainly going to give Hextall and Chris Pryor an F for this because there was no reason to even trade for him. I would have rather they traded for JT Miller and be stuck with that contract than trading for Granlund, who just was never a fit. And I understand that he was probably under a lot of pressure to make this deal because the Penguins were in a massive fight for their lives trying to get into the playoffs. But you just cannot make that deal, especially when there are 2 years left on it at $5 million. He didn't even ask Nashville to retain salary. What was he doing? Just total cluelessness from this front office. So that wraps up this segment going into my Kyle Granlund season review. Later on this week, we're going to get into the fourth line with Josh Archibald, Ryan Poehling. We'll get into some of those other players who played here then before we get into the defensemen with their season reviews. Coming up to end the show, we're going to get into the playoff action from Sunday and why Kyle Dubas might be getting a call from Fenway Sports Group later this week and why he does and doesn't make sense in a way for this GM job here in Pittsburgh. But before we get into that, if you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever, and that's Built. You have to try this. If you're like me and you want to make healthier snack choices but don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing you won't think they're good for you. You have to try this. And what makes them so good? Well, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and that's right, real chocolate, and they come in great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I'm not sure how they do it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at Walmart or Sam's Club and still get your other specialty flavors. You can go up, pick a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff. And if you're close to Same Club, you can go there as well. You can thank me later when it comes to that. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, follow the show's Twitter at NHL Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. So let's jump into this final segment for the show, and that's the playoff recap from Sunday. 2 really crappy games. The Devils absolutely take the Hurricanes to the woodshed. They are down 2-1. The Devils always decide to play their best hockey when they're down 0-2. I don't know what it is, but they kicked a lot of butt in that game on Sunday afternoon. Luke Hughes made his debut, had a couple points. Jack Hughes, 5-point day for him. He was electric. The Hurricanes, it's funny, they scored 3 shorthanded goals. Usually when you allow 3 shorthanded goals, you should lose, but that's what happens when Jack Hughes goes off for 5 points and the Devils score 7 total goals. Really nice game from them. Vitek Vanecek played well. And then the Maple Leafs, they go down 3-0 to the Florida Panthers, and all of that good vibes from the first round. You win your first series in 19 years. Basically just a giant wet fart noise. As Dom Luchusco of The Athletic said on Twitter last night, 19 years for this, LOL. Yup, you waited 19 years to beat the Lightning, and now you're down 3-0, and you're trying to become only the 5th team in NHL history to come back from a 3-0 deficit. The last team that did it, remember, Flyers came back to beat the Bruins over a decade ago. Yep, the last team to overcome that was the Flyers. And the Flyers were down 3-0 in that Game 7, and they came back to win it. 3-0 in the series. Going into Game 7, the Bruins went up 3-0. They blew that too. Yep. Last team to do it. Before that, only 3 other teams have done it. It's just crazy to think about. But, we all know the Kyle Dubas rumors are about to start up. I think he would obviously be a fine hire here. He has shown an ability to build winning teams in Toronto. The one thing that scares me, though, the goaltending. Because it's funny. You look at, the teams that he's helped build. And obviously he didn't, he was there, when, they drafted Matthews and they got Marner and Nylander and they signed John Tavares. But, he orchestrated the trade for Ryan O'Reilly. They have Morgan Riley in the system. Honestly, again, they orchestrated the trade for O'Reilly. I know I just repeated myself, but bear with me here. They got Mark Giordano via trade. But the goaltending, Alex Kerfoot, they got him in a trade. The goaltending, though, he went into this season with Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray as his 2 starting goaltenders. That's a little bit of a red flag for me, people. Right now, Samsonov is hurt. Matt Murray, he says he's healthy enough to play, but if Samsonov is not able to start game 4, I think they're going to go with Joseph Woll, who's their 3rd-string goalie. And, I compared him to Louis Domingue last night. I apologize for that because he has much better numbers than Domingue. He's their 3rd stringer, but I don't know how long it's going to stay that way. But it was just a very risky proposition, and you're seeing why it was risky right now, even though they won a round. Samsonov, he's been banged up in his career. He's also been inconsistent. He's been pretty decent in these playoffs, though, but he had to stay healthy. Right now, he's not. I don't know if he's going to play on Wednesday. Matt Murray, he was the 3rd-string goalie. He had to go down to back up last night. He says he's healthy, but I don't know if he's going to play. He's been hurt, for much of the season. It's tough. That's the one thing I would be concerned about if Dubas was the hire here, would be the goaltending. Would he be able to bring in someone, that's better than Tristan Jarry, and would he be able to really just overhaul the position that I think it truly needs? I saw someone say yesterday on Twitter that he would maybe want to bring in his own coach. I disagree with that because I think that the Family Sports Group thinks so highly of Mike Sullivan that he's going to stay no matter what. Could Dubas want to bring in his own guy at some point? Yes. But I think Dubas and Sully would get along just fine. But again, there are also pros. He's shown ability to build a Stanley Cup contending team year after year. He has the core in place. He's gotten them some good help in Giordano and some of those other players that I mentioned. You can say that some of his depth moves have been a bit weird at times, like, trading for Sam Lafferty, signing Aston Reese I thought was not bad, but I mean, David Kampf is pretty decent. He had a good game for game 3. And of course, my dogs at the end of the show can want to start barking again. But he has shown a history of some solid depth signings as the Maple Leafs manager, and he's usually built some decent defensive groups as well. Remember, he orchestrated the trade for Jake Muzzin at a trade deadline a few years ago from LA. When he goes after players, they are usually good and have strong analytics. But again, that doesn't mean that he's prone to always going after this type of players. He did sign Wayne Simmons after all for this season, someone who I think is cooked at this point in his career. He has no problem going after that sort of sandpaper. Remember, Zach Bogosian, I believe, was also there for a time. So, he's definitely gone after some players who are not super good. He did trade Rasmus Sandin to Washington for Eric Gustafsson. That was a weird move. I would have just kept Sandin because I think he's the better player. So there are still some misses with him, but I do think there are more hits overall compared to misses, and he would be an upgrade over Ron Hextall. And at the end of the day, that's probably good enough for me. Again, not my top choice, but I understand why the Fenway Sports Group would go after him because of their use of analytics and someone who has had success. I understand some of the fan base is not going to be on board with it because he's only won 1 playoff series since getting the full-time gig. But he has shown the ability to build those winning teams. And I don't think it's truly his fault. How do I want to say this? I don't think it's truly his fault that his teams have come up short. You have to put some blame for the people on the ice. I also will say he does not have the full final say on matters. That, my friends, is Brendan Shanahan. And I think that's another reason why this could be enticing to him. It's because the Fenway Sports Group could offer him total control of the hockey operations department. So that's something I think could really entice him once he becomes a free agent. And assuming the Leafs do lose this week, and I think they will, now that they're down 3-0, I think within 5 or 10 minutes, the Fenway Sports Group will call and ask to interview him because he's a free agent. They won't have to go ask permission or anything like that. But that does it for this episode. Well, I will want to say Seattle, they go up 2-1 on Dallas. The Kraken just continue to kick so much, but they have, I believe the number is 16 different goal scorers in the playoffs now. 16. Like, what? Shouldn't even be possible. That just goes to show how deep they are. But that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for listening / watching. I'll be back with another episode for you all on Tuesday. We'll get to see how the draft lottery results are, how tonight's game is between the Knights and the Oilers, and we'll talk a whole bunch of other things relating to the Penguins as well. So thank you all so much for listening / watching. Really appreciate it. I'll be back with another episode for you all on Tuesday.